Okay, guys, guess what? We're going to learn something very powerful and beautiful in this class as I take you around everything about genetics and variation. You see, this is one of the important topics in biology that they don't play with, genetics and variation. So we will look at every singular thing on it from the beginning to the end. But before we go into that, look at a student like you. JAMB score 342, right? Applying for medicine. So you don't need to play. Look at another score, 306. Look at another score, 323. Look at another score, 348. All these are SS3 students, just like you. Now, look at this student score, 350. For you to know that 350 is possible, it's very easy, and you can get it. Look at another score here, 358. Look at another score, 359. If they can do it, you can do it. There is nothing that is holding you from doing and achieving all of these things. So pay solid attention as we move together, and don't forget that all these things are brought to you by the Learn Lift app. If you are preparing for any of the exams, WAEC, NECO, UTME, you have just gained admission, you are going to 100 level, any of the exams you are preparing for, your classes are in the Learn Lift app for you. So go to Play Store, App Store, and download the Learn Lift app, right? And you start learning very, very fast. You have access to detailed video lessons, study notes, CBT and past questions, live classes, right? And then any of the exams you are preparing for, your classes are tailored there for you in the Learn Lift app. And don't forget this, within the Learn Lift app, what makes it special, right, is that the classes are detailed. When I mean detailed, you click on biology, you can see various subjects, right? You click on biology, it will show you chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, all the way to the end. You now say, oh, sir, I want to go through all the classes under evolution in animals. And then you click on chapter 5. It's telling you that there are 10 resources there. When you click on chapter 5, phylum Protozoa, Colenterata, Platyemite, Nematoda, Annelida, Mollusca, Echinodermata, right? And then your param, your pieces, right? Your amphibia, your aves, all of those classes are there, and they are well structured for you. And you start going through them. Let's say you now want to go through your phylum Protozoa. You click on phylum Protozoa. It's telling you that there are 5 videos and 1 note for you. Classification of animals, protozoa, amoeba, paramecium, chlamydomonas, euglena, everything is structured for you in the Learn Lift app. So you don't have an excuse to say this is the reason why I did not do well in my exam. Come on, keep quiet. Excuses are for failures. So now you just play and you start learning from wherever you are. Very, very easy, very, very direct. Aside that, you have access to your notes within the app. You have access to your past questions, because the Learn Lift app has been structured to ensuring that you do very well in your exam. And don't forget this, you want to communicate with your academic counselor, just go ahead and send a WhatsApp message, right, to your academic counselor, and you will be attended to by the Learn Lift app immediately. So if you are ready and you are good to go, let's go together as we look at genetics and variation. So under genetics and variation, this is our lesson number 1. We're going to look at the lessons part by part, right? So under lesson 1, what should we learn about this? Very simple. Let's look at the introduction to genetics. What is it about introduction to genetics? Understand this, that it is a well-known fact in biology that offsprings that are produced through sexual reproduction, they tend to resemble parents, right? They resemble their parents in one way or another. For example, when they look at you, right, you have a striking resemblance with your father. Some of you so much look like your father. Some of you look like your mom, right? Why? Some people resemble either their parents or their grandparents. Why? Because of what? Genetics. It's not that they will now give birth to you and now looking like your gate man. That would be suspicious. Don't forget this, that this resemblance may be immediate parents, right? It may be that you resemble your immediate parents directly, or sometimes the grandparents. You see, you can trace this to where the person is coming from. So such similarities, which occur continuously from one generation to another, are due to the inheritance of certain characteristics or traits from parents to their offsprings. In other words, it is the parents that have passed on some characters, right, down to their offsprings. And it's important to notice that this observation supports one of the earliest idea about heredity that scientists were considering, and they gave it a simple term that likes tends to beget likes. What does it mean? It means that tomato cannot go and give rise and give birth or produce rice. Let me use it that way. Tomatoes cannot generate rice. Beans cannot produce corn. It's not possible. Why? Because likes tends to what? To begat what? Likes. And I like you to understand this. When it comes to inheritance of traits, you must know this very importantly, that in everyday life, there are certain questions that people do ask. Why is it that individuals possess certain traits? Traits like what? Skin color. You as a black man, when you look at your skin color, it's different from that of whites, right? What about hair color? You can see certain differences. You can see differences in eye colors and so on and so forth, including height. Some people are tall, some are not too tall, some are short, some are dwarf, right? And don't forget is that sometimes a child is said to resemble one of his or her grandparents, right? Rather than even the parent itself. There are some children that when you look at them, say, this boy looks exactly like his grandfather. All of these things are under genetics. And as we move, I will explain them in details. Questions of this nature, where do we look at them? Genetics, majorly. So how do you define genetics and heredity? This is where I want you to pay attention. What is the definition for genetics? Very simple. Tell us that genetics is the branch of biology that deals with the study of inheritance and variation. Anywhere you hear the word inheritance, it means heredity. So the study of heredity and variation. Heredity and variation. What do we call it? It is called genetics. The branch of biology that deals with the study of heredity or inheritance and variation is called your genetics. And genetics also explains how traits are passed from parents to offsprings during sexual reproduction. Right? You know, there are some children that when you see them, when their daddy smile, their daddy will smile, and now put hand on his head. Newborn baby, or let's say the baby is like 5 years, the child is smile, and put hand on his head. A chip of the old block. You can see that this child is doing exactly like the parent. So, how those traits come into play, it is genetics that explains them to us. Now, what about heredity on the other hand? Heredity refers to the process. Are you seeing it now? The process by which characteristics or characters or traits are transmitted from parents to offspring. That process is called heredity. But genetics is the branch of biology that deals with the study of inheritance or heredity and variation. But the process that leads to how those characters or traits are transmitted from parents to offspring, what do we call it? Heredity. And you must understand this, that these traits may be physical features like your height, your skin color, your eye color, etc. Right? All of these things are what we study under heredity. So if you are ready and you are good to go, let's go together. Let me give you a quick historical background of genetics before we proceed. When it comes to historical background of genetics, first I'd like you to know this, that the study of genetics, it dates back to several centuries, right? Arising from man's curiosity, as then people were curious. All those ancient men were curious. They wanted to understand how traits are passed from one generation to another. How come I will give birth to my son? My son looks like me. My son does not look like my neighbor, right? They were curious. They wanted to understand more. So it is their studies, that curiosity, that's what made them to carry out some early research. So what were the early studies we discovered? We discovered that around 1770, right? A plant breeder, more like a botanist, right, called Joseph Gottby. He worked with tobacco plants, and from him working around tobacco plants, he discovered a couple of things. What did he discover? Number one, he crossed different varieties of plants, right? Tobacco, different varieties. He started crossing them. As he crossed them, he started producing hybrids, right? Hybrids were produced. And as a result, he recognized that hereditary traits were transmitted through pollens and ovule. He was able to identify it that, you can transmit traits by using pollen and ovule. So you can carry pollen grains from one tobacco plant and come to the ovule of another plant, and fertilization can occur. It was a surprise to man as at that time. And don't forget this, that however, genetic studies before 1866 were largely inconclusive. Oh yes, they were inconclusive. They did not clearly explain a lot of things. How hereditary traits were transmitted were not clearly explained. A lot of things were not even documented, right? Because no matter how good you are as a scientist, then if you don't document your findings, nobody will know, right, that you have talked about any of such things. So there were no documentations, there were no findings, there were no research that were done. Some of those research were not properly documented. So as a result of that, we could not really attribute the father of genetics to them until Gregor Mendel came up with his laws of heredity. Now follow me, let me give you a little things about Mendel's work. Now, a major breakthrough occurred in 1866 through the work of Gregor Mendel, an Australian monk. So this guy was not just an ordinary reverend father. No, he was a monk, right? Like a reverend father that stays in the monastery. So, you know, let me say, in different parts of the world, there are different monasteries. Monasteries are not always in town. They are inside the forest, right? And monks are there. They study, they pray, they study, they pray, they study, they pray for the world all through their lives. So, this guy, Gregor Mendel, was a monk, right? Living in monastery in Australia, in a city called Broome. He published his findings. So you see, this is what distinguished him. He published his findings on heredity in the journal of a local natural science society. So he did not just carry out his research and then he just kept quiet. No, he went ahead and he published it. That was why we were able to trace it back to him. Now, let me give you a good example. Now, Mendel's contribution were very, very powerful. What were his contribution? Number one, he carried out controlled experiments on pea plants. You know, unlike the first guy that used tobacco, what did Mendel use? Mendel used pea plants for his experiments. That's number one. He discovered predictable patterns. He started seeing patterns right from his experiments in inheritance of traits, and he started documenting them. Number three, he formulated two basic laws of heredity, and the laws were correct. Mendel's first law and Mendel's second law. As we go, I will show it to you. Unfortunately, Mendel's work was not recognized during his lifetime. While he was alive, nobody appreciated his work. Oh yes, it was after he had died. So when he died, that was when we started going through some of his work. Why did we not appreciate Mendel's work? Mendel researched, he documented, and then he stopped. Why? Because of increased responsibilities on his head. Right? As at then, he now became the head of the monastery. So he was the one who overseen the entire monastery. And there were a lot of things for him to do. There were a lot of studies, religious studies for him to do, religious activities for him to carry out. Right? So he could not proceed with his scientific research. So he discontinued his research and died in 1886. So you see, he carried out major breakthrough in 1866. Then 20 years later, 1886, he died, without knowing the importance of his discovery. So it was after he had died, we now went back to do some rediscovery on Mendel's work. What made us to go into rediscovery? Come with me. In 1900, there were three different scientists that were working independently, right, on variation, genetics, right, inheritance. They wanted to understand how all of these things work. And who were the three scientists? Number one, Hugo de Vries from Holland. Another person was Karl Correns, right, from Germany. And then we have Erich von Schemack from Austria. These three guys were carrying out independent research. And as they carried out their research, they observed that regular and predictable ratios. You know, as you move, you start hearing ratios like 3:1, 1:2:1. They too started observing regular and predictable ratios of offspring when pure breeding organisms were crossed. As a result of this, they did not just keep quiet. They say, wait, maybe somebody might have researched upon this. Let's go back to review the previous work that other scientists have done. So upon reviewing earlier literatures, that was where they discovered that Mendel had already reported clearly all these findings decades earlier. So 20 years, in fact, more than 20 years, right? So 20 something years earlier, Mendel had already discovered all of these things. Are you seeing it? So this guy discovered that, oh, Mendel talked about this. So this other guy, Mendel talked about it. Oh, this other guy, Mendel talked about it. Oh, as a result of that, what do? We went and then we concluded that Mendel should be recognized as the pioneer of genetics. So who do we give the pioneer of genetics to? Of course, Gregor Mendel. That's number one. Number two, Mendel's principles, right, were now named after him. So we called it Gregor Mendel law, or Mendel's laws of what? Inheritance. So the principles, what do we call them? Mendel laws of what? Inheritance. And don't forget is that he became known as the father of modern genetics. So who is the father of genetics? Gregor Mendel. The father of modern genetics, Gregor Mendel, is the father of modern genetics. And don't forget is that despite advances in genetics and cytology today, because there are a lot of advances that we have seen over the years, Mendel laws remains the foundation of heredity, right, and then variation. So Mendel is the father of who? Genetics. You get this very fast and you understand it. In summary, very quickly, don't forget this. Number one, that genetics is what? The study of heredity or inheritance and what? Variation. That's genetics, number one. Number two, what is heredity? Heredity is the transmission of traits, right? The process of the transmission of what? Traits or characters from parents to what? Offspring. What do we call that? Heredity. What about variation? Variation refers to the differences among individuals of the same species. Let's say, for example, human being. Which species do we belong to? We belong to the species called Homo sapien. So I am Homo sapien, you are Homo sapien. How come I am tall? You are short. So you see it now. That difference, right, between individuals of the same species, what do we call it? Variation. How come I am fair, you are dark? Variation. How come when I smile like this? you smile cuckoo. What is that? Variation. Are you seeing it now? And don't forget this, that Gregor Mendel is the what? The father of genetics. So is the father of modern genetics, Gregor Mendel. Don't forget this, that Mendel's success. Why was Mendel so successful? Mendel's success was as a result of the following. Number one, Mendel studied one or two contrasting traits at a time. So Mendel did not do ambiguous work. You know, I usually say this, how do you eat an elephant? The easiest way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. You don't open your entire mouth and you want to swallow the entire elephant. It does not work that way. It is one bite at a time. How do you win in life? One step at a time. How do you pass JAMB in flying colors with 350 and above? One page at a time, one video at a time. That's how you win. So Mendel studied one or two contrasting traits at a time. He did not carry everything and started studying them. No. He research on one, get his result, document, then move to the next. As simple as that. Number two reason why Mendel was successful was that he used pure breeding plants. Pure breeding. What did he use? He used pea plants, right, for his experiments. Pea plants. Of course, pure breeding pea plants, so he used. And then number three, he kept accurate records. In fact, this was the major reason why he was successful. He kept accurate records. That's how we even remembered him. And then number four, he applied mathematics to his results. He applied what? Mathematics, because while he was studying in the university, he studied mathematics alongside with everything he studied. So he applied the mathematics he studied in his work. As a result of that, his experiments, his results, everything were very, very beautiful. If you understand this and you get it to the core. What is genes? They also want us to know what genes are. Genes are the units of what? Inheritance. And don't forget this, that genes are located on the chromosomes. As we move, I will show you genes, I will show you chromosomes, I will show you cell, nucleus, and DNA. And you must also know this, that homozygous, anyway, hear the word homozygous. Homozygous means identical alleles. So this is homozygous dominant, and this is what? Homozygous what? Recessive. And then we have heterozygous. Heterozygous is for hybrid, right? So different alleles, heterozygous, capital T, small t, heterozygous. Homozygous, capital T, or small t. Are you seeing it? So identical alleles are homozygous. Different alleles are what? Heterozygous. If you understand that, in JAMB 1991, question 37, they brought this question. The same question, they repeated it in 2002 and 2022 question 18. The question says the greatest contribution to genetic studies was made by who? The greatest. Who made it? Was it Thomas Morgan or Gregor Mendel or Charles Darwin or Robert Hooke? What is the answer? Your Gregor Mendel option. What? B becomes the correct answer. Very easy. You cannot say the answer is Thomas Morgan. No, it's not Morgan that talked about that. As we move, I'll tell you more about Thomas Morgan. It's not Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin talked about evolution, right? It's not Robert Hooke. Robert Hooke was making use of microscope, right? So during in cytology, Sime has treated it. That's where you have your what? Anton von Leeuwenhoek, and then your what? Your Robert Hooks under those area. Now, another thing you must know very fast is this. Question 2. They brought this question 1997, question 43. The question say, one reason for the success of Mendel's work is that what did he do? A, he was the first to carry out research work on modern genetics. Was he the first? He was the first that documented what we could accredit to. Option B, he introduced quantitative and qualitative elements into his work. Option C, he selected two characteristics only at a time for the studies. Option D, he drew up his laws of inheritance based on his knowledge of chromosomes. What is the answer? He selected two characteristics only at a time for his what studies. Option was C. He did not make it cumbersome. If you get that very fast, look at another question, 1983, question 24. The question says, an organism having one pair of identical genes, what do you call that organism? Is it hybrid, allelomorph, homozygous, your diploid? What is the answer? An organism having one pair of identical gene, maybe like TT like this or TT like this. What is that? It is what? Homozygous. Homozygous, not homozygote anyway, because that was what they brought that year. It's supposed to be homozygous. Option what? C becomes the answer, and then you move and you're out of there. Look at 1993 question 1. The question say, on what structures are the unit of inheritance studied? On what structure do you study them? Are they on Golgi bodies or ribosomes or chromosomes or endoplasmic reticulum? What is the answer? Chromosomes. Option what? C becomes the answer. Does it make sense? If you get that very fast with me, that's all about that they want us to know. You see, introduction to genetics, we have treated it, we have looked at their past questions, we have looked at everything about them. The next class, we're going to look at the cell and heredity, and that becomes our lesson 2. Don't forget that all these classes are brought to you by the LearnLift app. Go to Play Store or App Store and download your LearnLift app today. Enjoy yourself.